Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. So the next video for you guys is working through the face. My theory is if I get this sorted now, any cladding that I want to bring up over it can be done. So I decided I'd do the one, and then I thought I'll turn on the camera and show you what I did. We'll get to this piece on the top here in a moment. So I just want to unpin it a little bit. So let me just remove those. So what I've done is I cut myself a piece of hessian, a rectangular piece of hessian. So that's the piece there, because I need a second one for my second rabbit. Now the measurements of that hessian, let me just measure that, is 8 inches by probably 6, 5 3/4. It needs to be big enough that when it sits on him, it just tucks in under the neck, as you can see, and then just drifts around to the side, allowing enough to come up and over his muzzle. Does that make sense? So the first thing I did was, once I got it on his face like I am now, I then got needle and thread and stitched along this bottom edge, and that attached it through here. You can just see where I just whip stitched. Now all this stitching is going to be covered, so you need not be too precious about how it looks. Just get it on and then work your way up the side to the corners. So if we place that back on there, you whip stitch along this bottom edge and then work your way up to the corners. Does that make sense? So then I started drifting up here on the side of his face. So I'm now stitching up to that top edge on both sides. So we've sort of got his chin and his nose area covered with the hessian. All we've got to do is work out how to finish the top. And what I did there is we need to create a pleat. So I've stitched, let me hold that back there. I've come up to that top corner and I've started working my way back across the nose. So if that lays down, you come up to the top corner and start stitching down across his nose. I then sliced in here, allowing that to lay flat and then that flap to come back across the top of his nose. Then I went to the other side. Same thing. I stitched all the way up here, started stitching across the top of his head, as you can see there. Then I put a slice through here that then laid flat, and then the little piece left standing was able to be laid across the top of his nose. Does that make sense? Those folds that are under my fingers now, they get sliced. So that allows that piece to lay flat, that piece to lay flat, leaving this little end, and of course it lays flat. And then I stitched that down. But before you get to the point of completely blocking yourself out, you can see in here I got some stuffing and made some little balls of stuffing, probably about that size, and placed them right on his cheeks. So it sort of padded it out a little bit. That way you start to get a little bit of shape around the top of your muzzle. Now I just want to show you in there, and in there are the little round balls of stuffing. So that tucked it down and it's all stitched. So in one foul swoop, I've done his nose and his cheek. So that's the way I've come up with to do my little man. Then I thought, well, being that fabric will cover all these outer edges, I put also, there was a little bit of stuffing went onto his chin just here. Just gave it a little bit of a bump through here. I then got some brown crochet cotton and I stitched in his smile. So underneath his cheeks, and then a little V here for his little mouth opening. So that's where I'm at this stage. I sort of went back a few times on that stitching. It's up to you how much or how little you do. So I tried to make him, he's supposed to be scrappy, so I wanted him to look a little bit scrappy. Then we're starting to think about the cladding. Now, I've embroidered a piece of that panel. I cut out a heap of the flowers and embroidered them up. This one I haven't got back to, so I'm just not sure. I was going to go ahead and embroider them all like I did show you in a video where I prepped them all, but I decided to stop because I could spend all that time on those pieces and I just don't know where they'll all fit on the body. I'm just moving myself around here. I've got rabbit bits under my feet here. But I did do this one because I knew that it would fit nicely across the top of his head, his crown. So what I've done so far is I'm just sort of fiddling around a little bit to work out how he would be attached. Now underneath there I can see the seam that is the top of the head meeting the side. So at the moment I'm just pinning on that seam. It's going to help me sort of work out where the shape of him is. So I think the plan will be to put a running stitch in there, right down to the top of that nose, allowing it to be attached. And I'm going to use a crochet cotton. So I'm in uncharted territory now. I'm just sort of feeling my way around my little man here. Ow, there's a pin. See, I feel like that needs to come over a fraction. So I'm just going to go back. We're sort of at the exciting stage now where we're starting to just add our elements to him. Now, I think the next thing will be to work out what fabric is going to come up the side of his face. So I think that'll work. I am considering also putting a little triangle here for his nose, but I'm just going to hold until I sort of see how this all goes, I think. No use stitching it in now and finding out it's the wrong size or something like that. And I've got heaps of felt. I could even do something crazy and put in a piece of lace for his nose as well, like that. So I'm just gonna wait. I'm tending towards the lace idea. Now, the other thing I wanted to do is just show you the start of cladding. So I just grabbed myself a little rectangle, a square of fabric, and I had placed it roughly here. Now I'm thinking if I can bring that up to meet that embroidered piece, I'll get that nice rough edge across the ridge of his head. So that's sort of where I got to, and I thought, oh, I better turn the camera on because these are pretty crucial steps next. So I think I'll just follow the side of his face there with this patch because there's no rules now. He can pretty much be, you know, anything. Now, so that's his little nose and cheek zone. So let's grab some more fabric. Oh, the other thing I started mucking around with, I mentioned in the last video that I really wanted to use these bear eyes that I inherited. Now, my theory was in that video that I would need to apply them before I did all of the seams up. Well, I come up with another idea. I decided to have a play with making it outside like this and then adding it when I'm ready. And what I'm thinking is if I can find some good pliers, or a little hacksaw, I'm going to cut that little nodule off and then just stitch the eye into position when I'm ready. So that's the plan, to get an eye that looks like a teddy on after the fact. So when I was stitching away here, I was like, oh, hang on a minute. I think I can pull this off by just re-engineering the way I put him together. So I'm just leaning across to grab some more fabric, and I'm thinking this red has just jumped out at me. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And I'm just going to cut off another square. Can always cut it down in size. Just grabbed another one, and this one is 3 inches by 2 3/4. I'll rough up the edges a little bit because I want him to look scrappy, so I'm just going to give him a bit of a with my fingernail. Okay, and then it's just a case of popping it on. Lots of bits and pieces all being just pinned in and then stitched. It's as easy as that. I'll probably do a few invisible stitches around the place just to hold things as well. But I'll just take my time and just see if something feels like it needs to be secured a little bit better. I'll add a couple stitches so that can come down over his cheek like so. Where's that eye? And that eye, when it's ready, can be added like so into there. So let's find another piece for his cheek. So far we've pulled a piece out of that one. It's about to get really messy on my table, I think. I might go for something a little plainer. I just spotted a check fabric. Let's just cut. Where's my dressmaking scissors? Now I want to embellish him. I'm going to cut a rectangle this time, just with odd-shaped edges. It doesn't have to be squares. I'll pop it on. If I don't like it, I can always pull it off and cut it into a square. So it's just a case now of pinning that one into position and just working our way around the body. And then the eye will nestle into there. I like that. It's like a blaze coming up there, and all of this will just stitch down. With needle and thread. So let's grab needle and thread just to give you a bit of an idea how I think this will come together. Where's my good needle for this cotton? The little eye there, you'll notice that there's some fibres around it, around there. All I did there is I got some eyelash yarn and just took some out and wrapped it around before I pressed that stud down. So what I'm going to do, if this works, is I'm just going to bring my thread up there. It's tricky to do this on camera. Oh, didn't I knot it? Good. Okay, let's try that again. Let's try and tack down. Got some wadding that's popped through, so just make sure that that's okay. Now I need to position myself a little bit better. Feels a little cack-handed. And I'm just going to overcast stitch through here. Now I think that the secret to making these guys look really cool is don't be too precise with your stitches. It's got to look like he's scrappy, so your stitches also need to look a little scrappy. There we go, there's one. I think some folks, I've seen discussions on the Facebook group, have used spray glue as well, just to adhere fabric morsels onto their hair. So if you don't want a heap of pins, I guess that's one option as well. And it's just a case of stitching your bits down. Now, because this seam up here is not secure, by starting here in the center, I've got wriggle room to adjust. Whoop, don't pull it too tight, Corrine. I've got wriggle room just to adjust that if needed. Oh, this is fun. This is going to take a while. This is a slow process. I'm going to try not to overthink him, because that'll take too much time. And I also want to add lace to him. So I think once I get these big patches down, I'll then can have a look at where I put some additional embroidery pieces from that panel, and also some patches of lace. So I'll just get maybe an area done and then work back from there. Now, in addition to his face, I wanted to add some whiskers. So that will also be a case of knotting some of that chocolate thread through his little cheeks and have some dangly whiskers coming out. But I'm not going to do that at the moment. I might just trim that back there. I sort of feel like it's encroaching on his smile a little bit. So I'm just going to, while I can, take that out of there, rough it up a little. Now, I was going to do this guy in stitching all the decorative pieces on while he was still in pieces, but I decided against it because I really wanted some of my embroidered pieces to sit where a seam would be. And I'll show you what I mean. I was all gung-ho for having a go at the way Susanna did it, but then I realized that some of the pieces would sit right across his chest, and if it wasn't stitched together, that gave me less space to fit these big embroidery pieces that I plan to do, this additional fancy work. So I'll just finish this patch off here as I work down his little cheek. You could even get fancy and do a bit of feather stitch or fly stitch. Could do all sorts of crazy patchwork on him. It is awkward, I will say, but I've sort of got him leaning on the desk and he's wedged under my arm, and it seems to be going okay. Once I think I get this piece on, I'm actually going to be catching quite a few pieces underneath. So it might be a case of you lay 2 or 3 or 4 pieces down, pin them, and then you just stitch that one piece and it pretty much will hold a lot in place, and then you can come back and add the missing stitches to sort of finish off. Now I'll keep going along this edge, but more than likely there will be a piece coming through here anyway, but it won't hurt, it doesn't matter if I'm just going over my work, because you can't pre-plan too far ahead. I don't think you'd have a hair full of pins and it'd drive you nuts. So let's just get that And you might, I might find that I want to bring a piece of lace down over his cheek. So you'd need this stitched underneath just in case you could see it through your lace. That stitch is a little bit tight, so I just want to take the tension off of that a little bit. Oh, this is great. I love him. Now I'm hoping the next video, this little guy will be completed and you will see the end result. So happy Easter, everyone, for those of you that celebrate Easter. I hope you're having a great time out with your family and friends. Okay, let's got a little bit more thread here. And remember, if you find that there's a spot you don't like when you look back at him, because I think this takes a few days to sort of get him made, you can always whack another patch over. Like, no one is going to know that you've knotted off your thread, or, you know. That's the beauty of a scrappy rabbit. I know for a fact that I'll be covering here, so I'm certainly not taking my time now with this stitch. And I'm going to knot it off while I'm here, I think, because it's just getting a little bit too small. Okay. That'll hold. So that's the start of one of his patches. I'll do the same along there. I'll come up through here. I'll probably do an overcast stitch. I don't know. I'll have to have a little play. So he's going to have this embroidered piece across the crown of him. It's very hard to show you. Then there'll be some pieces come up the back. Now, I think the eye idea will work a treat. Once I get that shank trimmed off. So what I might do is make the second eye so you know what I did and how I did the layers. So that's his little eye. So let's work on that next. Then we need to talk about ears. Now, what I've done is because I've got two rabbits, I've pre-cut all of the little patches and they will both be the same. So I just want to make the remaining eyes. Now, I've got this piece of lace, and to soften the eye, I spotted this flower in here and this curve that's on that lace. So I had the idea that that could go in there as well as an additional layer. So that's the plan. That's the plan. And I need to now cut, whoops, a bit of a slit in there. Oh, is that far enough down before I get too carried away? It'll be similar. It won't be identical because, you know. Oops. Okay, let's just do this one step at a time. Just a hint of lace in there. And it's just a case of pushing my sharp pointed scissors through to make the hole. Then I get my eye in. That's good. And before that shank goes on, we need to get our little piece of eyelash yarn tucked in there. Now, I probably will add a few stitches as well because I don't want it coming out and I want to know that it's in securely. So I'm just going to trim that off there, tuck that in, and then when I stitch all of this in onto the rabbit, onto the hair, it'll all be in position. But for now, it's just the shank. We'll pin that down. Okay, so now I just grab the back and push it on. and all of that is caught in there. Anything that's not caught, it's just a case of grab some cotton. I think I actually had that already. And I'm just going to place some little invisible stitches in there because I can see that thread there. So I'm just going to tuck that and do a couple little stitches, and that will be nice and secure then. And catch that lace as well. It won't go anywhere. Now the next thing I want to do is talk about the ears, because I'll go ahead and attach them when I'm ready, when I'm cladding the body with all of the fabric. But I just want to talk through the process with that, because they are stitched onto his back. So that's just a few little extra stitches there to hold that into position. Okay, let's tidy this up. So those extra eyes I will make off camera, but we know how we're going to do it at least. I might just cut this lace while I'm here, and then we can carry on talking about ears. So the lace is just to add a little bit of interest in there, just so that it looks like the eyes got a few little details, is the theory behind that. All right, so we mustn't lose those eyes. I might just, hang on one moment, just grabbing a little tray to pop those in. That way they're safe. Okay, so we've knotted out the eyes. Now the ears, where's our rabbit? Come back here, buddy. Now the ears go on the back, of course, like so. So what we do is, you've got a couple options. If the ear is quite decorative, you might want the ear fully seen, so you would just stitch it straight on. So you'd have all your decorative fabric through here, and you just stitch your ears straight onto his back, like so. If you find that you need some additional support, I have noticed a few photographs where they've put a second patch of fabric over it, just to add that little bit extra support. So that's another option as well, which I don't mind the idea, because the last thing you want is, say, a little person to come up to play with those ears and bend them back. So to have them stitched down and then a panel over them as well is probably a really smart engineering idea. Now, I do have in my embroidered tricks some little pieces of artwork from fabric that I've done some additional embroidery on. So maybe I could cut this out and use that as his patch across his back of his ears, just to add that little interesting element, which I really am liking that idea. So that's how I plan to do the ears. It'll be a case of stitch them on first and then put something over it just to help hold it all together, especially if you're giving this to a little fella, a little person. Now the other thing, this patch here I've got plans for at the front, but that one there too would work beautifully as well. And I've just added a little flower from the fabric and just stitched in a few extra stitches to create a little piece that could be used. Now let's put the ears aside, because I want to go back to here and actually talk about this piece in particular, because my theory is I'm going to bring that over there as part of the next piece that I stitch on. So I'm going to pin that into position so you can sort of see the next step. Now I've slow stitched the piece of fabric onto a piece of calico just to give that extra layer, and I'm going to leave it there because I can always tuck under, I can come over the top, but at the moment that is going to follow the shape of his chin. And because I brought the Hessian down onto his chest a little bit, you've got a little bit of flexibility there with just easing in the patches. So there's a few shapes to this fellow, so there's going to be a bit of manipulating the body to get your shapes right. Okay, I think that's pretty good. That'll come down over there. Now, in amongst my fabric enhancing pieces, that's technical speak for all of this, I need to have a good look. Let me get rid of those needles, at what I've got here and where it would go. Now this is why I decided to put him together in his entirety, because I wanted to know that some of these pieces, which are quite large, will fit. Because remember, he's got these arms and he's got legs. So the last thing you want to do is have it in the way. And I'm thinking that piece would definitely fit on his chest because his arms will come across in front of it and then his legs are out of the way. So that's a definite. So I can for sure stitch that. So I'll put that to one side. Now, as for his legs and his arms, in particular a leg, I can have a look at some of these other pieces for them. So you sort of want to know they're going to fit. That will. So we could have that on a hip. The only thing is we will have a button attaching them. So do we bother with a piece of embroidery if only there's going to be a button in the way? How would it look if that was... That should work. If I make that piece sit to the side and there's still room for a button to go or a stitch to go through there, that will still work. So that's a definite. And I might just write on there leg, and that, looking at the rabbit, that would be the right. This is his chest. Now let's grab the other leg for the left hand side and see if there's a piece of embroidery that will fit. That one might be good. It too can swing over to the side. I'll just take that out. The button can attach and that would be over his hip. So I'd cover it in the red fabrics and, you know, patch him all up, and then that will be added as an additional piece. So that's part of Red Rabbit. Let's pin them together and let's write left leg. Okay, so we've found some nice pieces. I'll just pop that away. I guess the next thing is, if we've got this big piece here and we've got arms here, maybe there's some room on the back for some additional patches, or maybe I do something around his neck like there. That one would work there, coming down. I like that. So this one would be side of head. I'm sort of feeling more comfortable knowing I've got a bit of a plan for these pieces without, you know, soldering on and having nowhere to pop it. Yeah, that would look pretty cool. Back there, the eye would not be in the way. And you'd have a bit of embroidery there. So I'm thinking that can be on the side of the head as well. Okay. I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to save these 2 additional pieces because those might be able to go on the other rabbit. Don't know what colour I will embroider them or if I will at all, but I'm just going to put them to one side for now. The other thing I've got is stitched some artwork that came from a panel of fabric that is old advertising. So I've popped one of those on. I might cut that out and be able to work one of those patches in as well. So I've got a few options to use in my cladding, but I feel a lot more comfortable knowing that these have a home, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to leave the video at that. I think I've covered off on everything. I'm pretty comfortable. I've got, you know, his face sort of worked out. I'm thinking he's going to get a flower for the nose. I'm really liking that idea. That's a very old piece of lace, and I'm thinking that would make a very pretty little nose for our boy. Oh, how cute. I'm going to just pin it there for now because I might end up adding some more lace, but at least it's there and I can sort of get some time looking at it as I bring in some more patches and things like that. All right, guys, so it's not the usual hour video. Oh, there's something else I wanted to show you. Things like this, I had thoughts of working in. I might just trim that. I'm going to lift those pins and just, this is an edge off of a doily. I want to sort of work in some pieces like this. Yeah, that'll sit nicely. I can trim it there. Beautiful crocheted edge to a doily and tuck that in. Oh, this guy is going to be so much fun. Just a random piece of lace. So I'll keep that out, keep that out. All right, guys, I think that's it. Where's his eye? Let's have another little look at your eye, mate. Oh, he's an intelligent looking fellow. That'll work a treat. I just have to head out to the tool shed now and get this cut off. It shouldn't be too hard to do. And then I can stitch his little eye into position once I secure that, come across through here. Oh, what fun. All right, that's it. That's the plan. So in the next video, you will see this guy finished. I don't know about the blue guy, if he'll be finished, but we'll see. We'll see how we go. All right, guys, look after yourselves. Have a fantastic Easter, and make sure you spend some time with friends and family, because it's just good to stop occasionally, isn't it? All right, everyone, I will see you all later. Bye for now.